2 years had passed since the duel that changed everything. Sarah stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Harmony Station, watching as ships from dozens of species docked at the massive cooperative facility, orbiting the former neutral zone. What had once been empty space between hostile empires was now the beating heart of a new galactic civilization. The transformation had not been easy or universal. The galaxy was now divided into 3 distinct regions: the cooperative networks where former progenitor descendants worked together, the independent zones where species chose isolation, and the resistance territories where the old imperial mindset had reformed into something even more aggressive than before. The quarterly report from the Network Council, Dr. Webb said, approaching with a tablet full of statistics that would have seemed impossible just years before. Trade between cooperative worlds is up 300%. Scientific research sharing has eliminated duplicate projects on over 2,000 research initiatives, and the mediation system has resolved 96% of disputes without violence. Sarah smiled, but her expression remained troubled. And the vegan resistance? Dr. Webb's tone darkened. They've conquered 8 more systems this quarter, using propaganda that claims the awakening is a human plot to dominate the galaxy. Their technology has become more aggressive as they've suppressed their genetic memories completely. They're essentially turning themselves into living weapons. The irony was bitter. In trying to create a more peaceful galaxy, the inheritors had inadvertently triggered the formation of a militaristic faction that was more dangerous than any previous empire. The vegan resistance had allied with other species that rejected the awakening, forming a confederation built on the suppression of cooperative instincts. Any word from Captain Morrison's team? Sarah asked. They managed to evacuate the Rigel colonies before the resistance arrived, Dr. Webb reported. But we lost contact with the archaeological expedition at Wolf 359. Intelligence suggests they were captured rather than killed. Sarah touched her sword's hilt, feeling the weapon's patient strength. The inheritor weapons had grown more powerful over the past 2 years, fed by the growing network of cooperation they had helped create. But they had also revealed a terrible truth. Power used to force good outcomes was still just power, and those who rejected goodness could always choose to embrace its opposite. The council is meeting in an hour, Dr. Webb reminded her. They're going to ask for a direct military response to the resistance. Sarah nodded grimly. This was the moment she had been dreading since the awakening began. The cooperative networks were strong enough now to defend themselves, but doing so would require using the inheritor weapons in ways they had tried to avoid. The council chamber was packed with representatives from nearly 100 worlds. The diversity was staggering. Crystalline beings from the Tau Whale Collective sat beside the plant-like entities of the Undergrowth Collective, while humans shared space with the silver-skinned Altarians and dozens of other species that had emerged from hiding. At the center of the discussion was Admiral Harrison, her expression grim as she presented tactical data. The Resistance fleet is moving toward the core network hub at Alpha Centauri. If they succeed in destroying that facility, it will cripple communication between 43 cooperative worlds. Keeper Villanor of the Altarians spoke first. The defensive potential of the inheritor weapons has grown substantially. A coordinated response could stop the Resistance fleet without significant casualties to either side. But at what cost? Asked Speaker Harmony of Deep Waters. The moment we use the weapons to impose our will on others, we become what we sought to replace. Dr. Price stood, her crystal staff pulsing with nervous energy. With respect, Speaker, we're not talking about imposing our will. We're talking about defending ourselves and protecting innocent civilians. The debate that followed echoed arguments that had been raging across the networks for months. Some believed the inheritor weapons should be used decisively to end the threat posed by the Resistance. Others argued that any use of the weapons for military purposes would corrupt their true purpose. Sarah listened to all sides before standing. The chamber fell silent, waiting for the words of the first inheritor, the human whose duel had started this galactic transformation. 2 years ago, I cut Veltar's hand in a duel, she began. In that moment, I thought I was fighting for the freedom of one small colony. I had no idea I was triggering changes that would reshape the entire galaxy. She drew her sword and golden light filled the chamber. But this time the light carried visions of possible futures. Some bright, some dark, all dependent on the choices made in this moment. The Resistance believes we're trying to dominate them, Sarah continued. They're wrong, but their fear isn't entirely unjustified. The Inheritor weapons are tools of incredible power, and power always carries the risk of corruption. The vision shifted, showing potential outcomes. The networks defending themselves successfully, but becoming gradually more militaristic. The resistance destroying enough cooperative infrastructure to fragment the new alliances. A galactic war that could last for centuries. But there was another possibility, one that required the greatest courage of all. What if we're approaching this wrong? Sarah asked. What if instead of fighting the resistance, we show them they have nothing to fear from us? The chamber erupted in shocked protests. Admiral Harrison stood immediately. Sarah, they're not going to stop their attacks just because we ask nicely. They've already made it clear they intend to destroy everything we've built. Then we let them try, Sarah said quietly. The simple statement sent a ripple of disbelief through the assembled representatives. Sarah raised her sword higher and the golden light intensified. Not the infrastructure, she clarified. Not the people. But we let them attack the symbol they fear most. Us. The Inheritors themselves. Dr. Price understood first, her face paling. You're talking about allowing them to attack the heart of memory. To try to destroy the weapons themselves? Sarah nodded. The heart exists between dimensions. It's essentially indestructible by conventional means. But more importantly, it will show them exactly what the weapons really are. Not tools of domination, but keys to cooperation that only work when used freely. The plan that emerged from the following discussions was audacious in its simplicity. The Inheritors would withdraw to the heart of memory and invite the resistance to attack them directly. The cooperative networks would continue to function through their existing non-weapon infrastructure, proving that their alliance didn't depend on superior force. When the resistance fleet arrived at the heart of memory, they found not a fortress but an open invitation. The Inheritors stood waiting in the central chamber, their weapons drawn not in threat but in welcome. We know you fear what we represent, Sarah spoke through quantum communication to the resistance fleet. So come and see for yourselves. Test your strength against ours, but understand that we will not fight back. The Vegan commander's response crackled with hatred. You think this display of weakness will save you? We will destroy your weapons and free the galaxy from your influence. The attack that followed was devastating in its fury. The resistance had developed weapons specifically designed to counter progenitor technology. Energy beams that should have torn through the heart structure. Viral programs meant to corrupt the network connections. Even reality warping devices that attempted to sever the station's dimensional anchors. But the heart of memory was more than just a structure. It was an idea made manifest, a place where cooperation could exist across space and time. The attacks passed through it like light through crystal, absorbed and transformed into something beautiful rather than destructive. As the futile assault continued, something unexpected began happening aboard the resistance ships. The suppressed genetic memories that their leaders had worked so hard to eliminate began stirring. The sight of the Inheritor weapons being used purely defensively, the evidence of genuine cooperation rather than hidden domination, caused cracks to appear in the mental conditioning. One by one, resistance ships began powering down their weapons. Their crews were remembering not just their true origins, but their original choice to reject those origins. Now they had to choose again, with full knowledge of what they were accepting or abandoning. The final confrontation came when the Vegan commander himself teleported aboard the heart of memory, energy weapon in hand, determined to destroy Sarah personally. He found her waiting in the central chamber, her sword laid aside, completely defenseless. Kill me if you want, she said simply, but know that my death won't change anything. The networks exist because people choose cooperation. The weapons are just tools. The real power comes from the choice to work together rather than dominate each other. The commander stood frozen, weapon aimed at Sarah's heart, as the truth of her words sank in. Around the galaxy, cooperative worlds continued functioning normally despite the absence of the Inheritors. The networks had grown beyond their creators, becoming self-sustaining expressions of shared values rather than imposed systems. Slowly, the Vegan commander lowered his weapon. We could have chosen differently, couldn't we? From the beginning, we could have chose. The Defiant slammed into the third Vorthak ship with controlled fury. Sarah's tactical display showed the enemy vessel's hull buckling under the impact. But she felt no satisfaction. Not yet. "Boarding parties, prepare for entry," she commanded, her voice carrying an edge that made several crew members glance at her with surprise. Lieutenant Torres hesitated at his station. "Ma'am, standard protocol suggests we should disable the vessel and demand surrender." Sarah turned toward him, and Torres took an involuntary step back. The commander's expression hadn't changed much, but something in her eyes made his instincts scream danger. "The Vorthak don't take prisoners," she said quietly. "They harvest. They torture. They feed." Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Today they learn what it means to be prey." Dr. Webb watched his instruments in fascination and growing concern. The human crew's biosignatures were unlike anything in his medical database. Stress hormones, yes, but not the kind associated with fear or panic. These were the readings of predators preparing for a kill. On the research vessel, the surviving aliens huddled together in their damaged ship. They were Altarians, a peaceful species known for their advanced theoretical physics and pacifist philosophy. Dr. Nixtal, the expedition leader, struggled to understand what his sensors were telling him. "The humans," he whispered to his colleagues. "Look at their brain activity patterns." The data was impossible to interpret through their normal frameworks. Human neural activity showed massive synchronization in areas associated with violence, territory defense, and pack hunting. But layered underneath was something that terrified Dr. Nixtal even more. A cold, calculating intelligence that seemed to be enjoying the violence. Aboard the Defiance, Sergeant Maria Santos led her boarding team toward the airlocks. She had served in Earth's military for 15 years, seen action on Mars and the Europa colonies. But this felt different. The scent of alien blood in the air seemed to awaken something ancient in her DNA. "Remember," she told her team as they sealed their helmets, "the Vorthak show no mercy. Expect the same in return." Her Marines nodded, but Santos noticed they were moving differently now. Their usual disciplined formation had shifted into something more fluid, more natural. They looked like a pack preparing to hunt. The airlock cycled open with a sharp hiss. The Vorthak ship's interior was dark and humid, designed for creatures that preferred shadows. Perfect for an ambush, but as Santos and her team moved through the corridors, they found themselves adapting to the environment with disturbing ease. Private Johnson paused at an intersection, tilting his head slightly. "Sergeant, I can smell them. 3, maybe 4 ahead. They're bleeding." Santos didn't question how Johnson could detect that information. She just nodded and signaled for a flanking maneuver. Her team moved through the alien vessel like they had been born for this environment. The first group of Vorthak they encountered was trying to barricade themselves in what looked like a weapons storage room. The door was partially sealed, but Santos could hear them clicking and hissing in their native language. "Surrender and we'll make it quick," she called out in Galactic Standard. The response was a plasma bolt that nearly took her head off. Santos smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Your choice," she muttered. What happened next would later be classified in the official reports. The marine assault lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. When it was over, the weapons storage room looked like a slaughterhouse. Back on the bridge of the Defiance, Sarah watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The 2 remaining Vorthak ships were trying to flee, but their damaged engines couldn't generate enough power for a hyperspace jump. "Helm, intercept course on the lead vessel," she ordered. "I want prisoners for interrogation." Ensign Kim looked up from her sensors with a troubled expression. "Commander, the research vessel is requesting immediate evacuation to a safe distance." "Denied," Sarah replied without hesitation. "They're staying here until we finish cleaning up this mess." Dr. Webb approached her station cautiously. "Sarah, perhaps we should consider their request. They've been through a traumatic experience." Sarah turned to look at him, and Webb felt his breath catch. Her pupils were dilated, and there was something predatory in the way she held herself. "They're safe now, Doctor. We'll handle the Vorthak." The way she said handle made Webb's skin crawl. On the research vessel, Dr. Nixtal was frantically trying to establish communication with any nearby vessel. Any vessel except the human ship. His instruments showed that the humans had not only boarded one of the Vorthak ships, but had systematically eliminated all resistance in less than 5 minutes. "How is this possible?" whispered his colleague, Dr. Havlin. "The Vorthak are apex predators. They've conquered dozens of systems." Nixtal studied the tactical data streaming from the battle. The human ship moved with precision and aggression that defied conventional space combat doctrine. But more disturbing was the way the human crew seemed to be coordinating without verbal communication, as if they shared some kind of collective hunting instinct. "I think," he said slowly, "we may have discovered something terrible about humans." The Defiance closed on the second Vorthak ship, which had given up trying to escape and was broadcasting surrender signals. Sarah studied the alien vessel on her screen, noting the damage patterns, the life sign readings. "The tactical vulnerabilities, Commander," Torres called out. "They're offering to surrender in exchange for safe passage out of the system." Sarah considered this for a moment. The logical choice would be to accept the surrender, take prisoners, and file a report with the Galactic Council. That's what a civilized species would do. Instead, she found herself thinking about all the peaceful ships the Vorthak had attacked over the years. All the crews they had harvested. All the families that would never see their loved ones again. "Negative," she said finally. "Open fire." The bridge fell silent. Dr. Webb stared at her in shock. "Sarah, they surrendered." Sarah's hand rested on her sidearm, though she wasn't consciously aware of the movement. "The Vorthak don't understand surrender, Doctor. They only understand strength." The weapons barrage that followed was methodical and devastating. The Defiance's crew worked with mechanical efficiency, taking apart the Vorthak vessel piece by piece until nothing remained but debris and escaping atmosphere. When it was over, Sarah felt a deep satisfaction that should have troubled her but didn't. The scent of blood and ozone filled the bridge's recycled air, and she breathed it in deeply. On the research vessel, Dr. Nixtal watched the humans destroy the surrendering ship and felt something fundamental shift in his understanding of the universe. His people had always assumed that intelligence and civilization naturally led to peaceful behavior. The humans had just proven that assumption catastrophically wrong. As Sergeant Santos and her team returned to the Defiance, they brought with them detailed intelligence about Vorthak technology, tactics, and most importantly, the location of their home system. The interrogation of surviving Vorthak had been thorough. Sarah studied the data with growing excitement. Here was an opportunity to end the Vorthak threat permanently, to protect all the peaceful species of the galaxy from these raiders, to hunt the hunters. Word of the Defiance's encounter with the Vorthak spread through the galactic communication networks like wildfire. Within 72 hours, every major species in the local cluster had heard the impossible story. A single human vessel had not only defeated 3 Vorthak raiders, but had done so with such brutal efficiency that it defied all military doctrine. Sarah stood in the Defiance's briefing room addressing a holographic assembly of alien dignitaries from the Galactic Council. Their faces showed a mixture of relief, curiosity, and something else she was beginning to recognize. Fear. "The Vorthak threat in the Kepler 442 system has been neutralized," she reported in a matter-of-fact tone. "The research vessel Harmony's Dream has been rescued with minimal casualties." Council Speaker Vorak, a tall, ethereal being from the Centauri Collective, leaned forward in his chair. "Commander Chen, our preliminary reports suggest that your ship engaged 3 Vorthak raiders simultaneously. This seems improbable." Sarah's expression didn't change. "The reports are accurate." "But Commander," interrupted Dr. Selin of the Andromedan Union, "the Vorthak have been terrorizing our shipping lanes for over a century. Multiple fleets have failed to engage them successfully. How did a single exploration vessel accomplish what our combined military forces could not?" There was a long pause. Sarah could feel the weight of dozens of alien eyes studying her through the holographic link. She thought about how to explain something that she herself didn't fully understand. "We fight differently," she said finally. The simplicity of the answer seemed to disturb the council members more than any detailed tactical explanation could have. Dr. Webb, who had been silent during most of the briefing, stepped forward. "Honored council members, I believe there are aspects of human psychology that may not translate well to other species. Our response to threats, particularly threats against innocents, can be intense." "Intense enough to defeat the Vorthak?" Speaker Vorak pressed. "Our xenopsychologists have studied the Vorthak for decades. They are perfect predators, faster, stronger, and more aggressive than most known species. They have no natural enemies." Sarah's lips curved in what might charitably be called a smile. They do now. The briefing concluded with the Council's grateful acknowledgement of humanity's service, but Sarah noticed the alien officials signed off with unusual haste. As the holographic images faded, she turned to find Dr. Webb studying her with concern. "Sarah, we need to talk," he said quietly. They walked to his medical bay, where Webb pulled up detailed bioscan data from the crew during the battle. The readings painted a picture that made him deeply uncomfortable. "Look at these neural activity patterns," he said, highlighting various brain regions on his display. During the engagement with the Vorthak, every human aboard this ship showed synchronized activation in areas associated with predatory behavior. But it wasn't random aggression. It was coordinated, purposeful hunting behavior. Sarah examined the data with scientific interest. "Is that unusual?" "It's unprecedented," Webb replied. "Most species show stress responses during combat, elevated fear hormones, scattered neural activity, decreased cognitive function. You and the crew showed the opposite. You became more focused, more efficient, more dangerous." "And that concerns you?" Webb hesitated. "How do you tell someone that their entire species might be evolutionary anomalies?" "Sarah, I've studied hundreds of intelligent species. They all follow the same basic pattern. As they develop civilization, they suppress their violent instincts. It's considered a requirement for higher intelligence. But humans seem to have developed the ability to enhance their violent capabilities while maintaining strategic thinking." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "The perfect predator, you mean?" "Yes, but with the intelligence to use tools, coordinate attacks, and plan long-term strategies." Webb paused. The galaxy has never seen anything like humanity before. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the bridge. Lieutenant Torres appeared on the medical bay's screen, his expression tense. "Commander, we're receiving multiple distress calls from across the sector. It seems word about our encounter with the Vorthak has reached other raider groups. They're launching coordinated attacks on civilian targets." Sarah's expression hardened. "How many ships?" "Intelligence suggests at least 12 raider fleets, ma'am. They're hitting research stations, mining colonies, even passenger transports. It's like they're trying to prove they're still the apex predators in this region." Sarah felt that familiar stirring in her chest, the hunting instinct awakening. "Set course for the nearest attack site. Send a message to Earth Command requesting additional ships." "Ma'am, Earth Command is 3 months away, even at maximum burn. The raiders will be long gone by then." "We're not waiting for backup," Sarah replied. "Send the message anyway, but tell them we're handling the situation." Webb watched the conversation with growing alarm. "Sarah, you're talking about engaging multiple fleets with a single ship. That's not tactics, that's suicide." Sarah turned to look at him, and Webb saw that expression again, the one that made his instincts scream danger. "Doctor, you said humans are evolutionary anomalies. Maybe it's time the galaxy understood what that means." The Defiant set course for the Proxima mining colony, where a fleet of Catherian raiders was reportedly attacking the defenseless miners. As they traveled through hyperspace, Sarah called a general assembly of the crew. The entire complement of 67 humans gathered in the ship's main cargo bay. Sarah looked out at their faces: scientists, engineers, medical staff, security personnel, maintenance workers. None of them were professional soldiers except for Sergeant Santos and her small Marine detachment. "You've all heard about the raider attacks," she began. "Innocent people are dying while we speak. The Galactic Council is calling for a measured response, diplomatic solutions, careful planning." She paused, letting that sink in. "But we know the truth. Predators don't respond to diplomacy. They respond to strength, to being shown that they are no longer the hunters." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Sarah could see something awakening in their eyes, the same predatory focus she had felt during the Vorthak encounter. "I'm not going to order anyone to fight," she continued, "but I'm going to hunt down every raider fleet in this sector and show them what happens when they threaten peaceful species. Anyone who wants to transfer to a transport ship at our next port can do so with no questions asked." She looked around the room, waiting for someone to speak up, to voice the reasonable objection that they were explorers, not warriors. Nobody said a word. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the ship's theoretical physicist, raised her hand. Commander, I've been running calculations on Raider fleet tactics. I think I can modify our sensor arrays to track their hyperspace signatures. Chief Engineer Rodriguez stepped forward. I can boost our weapons output by 30% if we reroute power from the non-essential systems. One by one, every member of the crew volunteered their skills for the coming hunt. Sarah felt a surge of pride that should have concerned her but didn't. As the meeting dispersed, Dr. Webb approached her with a tablet showing new biological readings. Sarah, look at this, he said quietly. The crew's biosignatures have changed again. They're not showing stress or fear about the upcoming battles. They're showing anticipation, excitement. Sarah glanced at the data. They're looking forward to the hunt. Yes, and that's what terrifies me, Webb replied. We're supposed to be explorers, scientists, peacekeepers, but in less than a week this crew has transformed into something else entirely. Sarah considered his words as the Defiance dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Proxima system. Ahead of them, 5 Catherian raider ships circled the mining colony like vultures. Maybe this is who we always were, Doctor, she said quietly. Maybe we just needed the right circumstances to remember. The hunting pack was awake and it was hungry. The Proxima mining colony hung in space like a wounded animal, its outer ring sections venting atmosphere while 5 Catherian raiders circled it slowly. The Catherians were different from the Vorthak, more methodical, preferring to terrorize their victims before finishing them off. Sarah watched the tactical display with cold calculation. The raiders had positioned themselves to prevent any escape from the colony while systematically destroying life support systems. They were playing with their food. Ma'am, called Ensign Kim from sensors. I'm detecting approximately 300 miners still alive on the colony. The raiders are herding them into the central hub. For easier harvesting, Sergeant Santos said grimly from her position near the weapons console. It's a classic raider tactic, Sarah nodded. The Catherians wanted to maximize the terror and suffering of their victims. It was a mistake that would cost them everything. Dr. Tanaka, do you have a lock on their communication frequencies? The physicist looked up from her modified sensor array with satisfaction. Yes, Commander. I can not only intercept their communications, but inject false signals into their network. Perfect. Sergeant Santos, prepare your Marines for 5 simultaneous boarding actions. Santos raised an eyebrow. Ma'am, we only have 12 Marines total. That's barely 2 per ship. Then we'll have to be creative. Sarah turned to address the bridge crew. I want volunteers from every department. Engineering, medical, science, anyone who's willing to learn how to clear a raider ship. Dr. Webb stepped forward, his expression troubled. Sarah, you're talking about turning civilians into soldiers. These people are researchers, not warriors. They're humans, Doctor. That's all the qualification they need. The transformation that followed would have fascinated any xenobiologist. Within 6 hours, the Defiance's crew had reorganized itself into 5 assault teams, each led by experienced Marines but filled out with civilian volunteers who showed an alarming aptitude for tactical thinking. Dr. Lisa Park, the ship's botanist, found herself studying Catherian anatomy, with the focused intensity of a predator learning its prey's weak points. Chief Rodriguez worked with the Marines to create improvised weapons from engineering tools. Even the ship's chef, Henri Dubois, volunteered for combat duty after fashioning a collection of kitchen knives into something that would make medieval warriors envious. As the Defiance approached the raider formation, Sarah opened a communication channel to the lead Catherian vessel. The alien that appeared on screen was reptilian, with mottled green scales and vertical pupils that dilated as it focused on her. Human vessel, the Catherian hissed. You will withdraw immediately or share the fate of the colonists. Sarah leaned back in her captain's chair, projecting calm confidence. I have a counter-proposal. Release the miners and surrender your ships. We'll make your deaths quick. The Catherian's throat sac inflated, apparently a sign of amusement. 1 ship against 5? Your species lacks tactical intelligence. We'll see, Sarah replied, cutting the transmission. Dr. Tanaka's sensor modifications had given them a crucial advantage. The Defiance could track the exact position of every Catherian aboard the 5 ships, creating detailed deck plans in real time. More importantly, she had identified their command structure and communication protocols. Commence Operation Apex, Sarah ordered. The Defiant suddenly accelerated toward the Raider formation at a rate that should have been impossible for a ship its size. Chief Rodriguez had not only rerouted power to the engines, but had temporarily disabled several safety systems that limited acceleration to protect fragile alien passengers. Human passengers, apparently, were made of sterner stuff. The lead Cytherian ship tried to bring its weapons to bear, but the Defiance was already among them, too close for effective targeting. 5 boarding pods launched simultaneously, each guided by modified navigation systems that could penetrate Raider point defense networks. Sergeant Santos led Team Alpha onto the command ship, her Marines moving through the corridors with deadly efficiency, but it was Dr. Park who surprised everyone by demonstrating an intuitive understanding of Cytherian psychology. They're territorial, she observed, over the comm system as her team cleared the engineering section. They mark their territory with scent glands, but that also means they have predictable movement patterns. Her botanical training had given her insights into alien behavior that military specialists had missed. Within minutes, her civilian team had trapped an entire squad of Cytherians in their own ship's ventilation system. Team Bravo, led by Chief Rodriguez, encountered heavier resistance on the second Raider ship. The Cytherians had military-grade weapons and defensive positions, but Rodriguez had spent years working in the dangerous environments of space construction. To him, a hostile alien ship was just another hazardous worksite. "Henri, can you get to that power coupling?" he called to the chef, who was proving surprisingly effective with his improvised blades. "Oui, but there are 3 Cytherians guarding it." "Not for long," Rodriguez replied, activating an engineering tool that sent a surge of electromagnetic energy through the ship's hull. The Cytherians' weapon systems overloaded, leaving them temporarily defenseless. Henri moved through them like an artist creating a masterpiece. Meanwhile, Dr. Webb found himself aboard the 4th Raider ship, leading a team that included 2 medical techs and a computer specialist. He had expected to feel horrified by the violence, but instead found himself clinically analyzing the most efficient ways to neutralize Cytherian threats. "Their nervous system has a central cluster near the base of the skull," he reported over the comm. "A precise blow there will cause instant paralysis." His medical training made him devastatingly effective at incapacitating enemies without killing them. Unfortunately for the Cytherians, his team was less interested in taking prisoners. The entire operation lasted 18 minutes. When it was over, 5 Raider ships had been completely cleared of hostile forces. More importantly, the human teams had captured detailed intelligence about Cytherian operations, including the locations of their supply bases and the timing of their next raids. Sarah stood on the bridge of the captured command ship, studying the alien databases while her crew secured the mining colony. The rescued miners were grateful but noticeably nervous around their human rescuers. "Commander," Dr. Webb reported from the medical bay where he was treating wounded colonists, "the miners are asking when they can expect Galactic Council peacekeepers to arrive." "Tell them they won't be needed," Sarah replied. "We're handling the security situation." Webb's voice carried a note of concern. "Sarah, they're not asking for our protection. They're asking when someone will protect them from us." Sarah paused in her examination of the Cytherian star charts. "What do you mean?" "The miners are terrified, not of the Raiders but of what they witnessed during our boarding action. They saw humans moving through those ships like apex predators." Sarah finished quietly. "Yes, and they're not sure they want apex predators as protectors." Sarah considered this as she studied the tactical data. According to Cytherian intelligence, there were 17 more Raider fleets operating in the local sector. Thousands of ships, tens of thousands of Raiders preying on peaceful species across dozens of systems. "Doctor, ask the miners a simple question," she said finally. "Do they want the Raiders to return?" The answer came back quickly, a resounding no. "Then they have their answer. The Raiders won't be returning. We'll make sure of that." As the Defiance prepared to depart the Proxima system, Sarah received an encrypted message from Earth Command. The contents made her smile in a way that would have deeply unsettled anyone watching. Earth had been monitoring the situation through long-range sensors and communication intercepts. They were dispatching additional ships to support the Defiance's operations. But these wouldn't be exploration vessels or diplomatic ships. They were sending humanity's first dedicated hunting fleet. The prey had made the mistake of threatening the Pack's territory. Now the entire Pack was coming to remind the galaxy what it meant to be human. 3 weeks after the Proxima incident, the Defiance had become something that existed in no official military classification. It was part exploration vessel, part warship, and part something else entirely, a predator that had learned to think strategically. Sarah stood in what had once been the ship's botanical laboratory, now converted into a tactical intelligence center. Holographic displays showed the positions of every known raider fleet in the sector, their movement patterns, supply routes, and target preferences. Dr. Tanaka's modified sensors could track ships across multiple star systems, creating a real-time map of raider activity. The Sindarin Corsairs are moving toward the Vega research station, reported Dr. Park, who had transitioned from botanist to intelligence analyst with disturbing ease. 12 ships heavily armed following their standard intimidation pattern. Chief Rodriguez looked up from a workstation where he was designing new weapon systems. The modifications to our railguns are complete, Commander. We can now fire high-velocity rounds through hyperspace itself. The Corsairs won't know they're under attack until it's too late. Sarah nodded, studying the tactical projection. The Sindarin were different from the Catherians or Vorthak. They were opportunists rather than systematic predators. They relied on speed and overwhelming force to cow their victims into submission. Time to intercept? 47 minutes at maximum burn, Torres replied. But Commander, the Galactic Council has issued new directives. They want us to coordinate all military actions through their peacekeeping force. Sarah's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. The peacekeeping force that took 6 months to respond to the last raider attack. The one that arrives just in time to count the bodies. Ma'am, they're concerned about the methods we've been using. Apparently, several alien governments have filed formal complaints about human excessive force during anti-piracy operations. Dr. Webb entered the intelligence center, carrying a tablet with the latest reports from their recent encounters. His expression was grim. Sarah, we need to discuss these casualty reports, he said quietly. In our last 5 engagements with raider fleets, we've achieved a 100% fatality rate among hostile forces. 0 prisoners, 0 survivors. Sarah studied the data with clinical interest. Is that a problem? It's unprecedented, Webb replied. Most military operations result in surrender, retreat, or partial casualties. Complete annihilation is extremely rare. The raiders don't take prisoners, pointed out Sergeant Santos, who was cleaning her sidearm at a nearby workstation. Why should we? Webb turned to face the Marine. Because we're supposed to be better than them. Santos looked up from her weapon, and Webb saw that predatory expression again, the one that made civilized beings remember why their ancestors feared the dark. We are better than them, Doctor. We're more efficient. Before Webb could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Ensign Kim's voice came over the intercom with urgent clarity. All hands to battle stations. We're detecting a massive energy signature emerging from hyperspace. Multiple contacts, vector unknown. Sarah and her team rushed to the bridge where the main display showed something that made even the experienced crew pause. 17 ships had dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, sleek predatory vessels that radiated menace even at a distance. Vorthak? Asked Torres. No, Dr. Tanaka replied, studying her sensor readings. The design is different, these are. I think they're Andromedans. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's environmental systems. The Andromedans were one of the most advanced species in the galaxy, with technology that far exceeded anything humanity possessed. They were also known for their strict adherence to galactic law and their disapproval of violence. The lead Andromedan vessel began transmitting on standard diplomatic frequencies. The being that appeared on screen was tall and ethereal, with features that seemed almost carved from crystal. Its voice carried harmonics that suggested vast intelligence and barely controlled power. Human vessel Defiance. It spoke in perfect English. You are directed to heave to and prepare for boarding. By order of the Galactic Council Emergency Tribunal, you are under arrest for violations of interstellar law. Sarah stepped forward, her expression calm despite the overwhelming odds. This is Commander Sarah Chen. On what charges? Excessive use of force, failure to accept surrenders, systematic genocide of raider populations, and most seriously, the deliberate cultivation of violent tendencies within your crew. The Andromedan paused, its crystalline eyes focusing on Sarah with unsettling intensity. You have turned your ship into something that threatens the stability of galactic civilization. We've been protecting peaceful species from raiders, Sarah replied evenly. You have been hunting for sport, the Andromedan corrected. Our psychological analysis of your crew shows that you have developed an addiction to violence. You seek out combat not for protection, but for the satisfaction of killing. The bridge fell silent. Sarah could feel the eyes of her crew on her, waiting for her response. She thought about the Andromedan's words, examining them for truth. Did she hunt for sport? Did the satisfaction of eliminating raiders go beyond mere duty? The answer scared her less than it should have. Stand down your weapons, the Andromedan ordered. Submit to arrest and you will be given fair trial before the full council. Sarah looked at the tactical display. 17 advanced warships against 1 converted exploration vessel. By any rational calculation, resistance was suicide. Commander, Dr. Webb said quietly, maybe we should consider their offer, if we've gone too far. Sarah turned to look at him, and Webb's words died in his throat. Her eyes had that expression again, but intensified beyond anything he had seen before. She wasn't just a predator anymore. She was an apex predator facing a challenge to her territory. Dr. Tanaka, Sarah said, her voice carrying across the bridge. Do you have a lock on their formation pattern? Yes, ma'am. They're maintaining standard diplomatic spacing. Chief Rodriguez, are the hyperspace torpedoes ready? All tubes loaded and targeted, Commander. Sarah smiled, and even her own crew felt a chill. The Andromedans made one mistake. They think this is about law and order. She opened a channel to the Andromedan flagship. Admiral, you accuse us of cultivating violence. You say we hunt for sport. You claim we threaten galactic civilization. The Andromedan waited, its expression unreadable. You're absolutely right, Sarah said. And now you're in our territory. The Defiance opened fire with weapons that shouldn't have existed, using tactics that defied conventional space combat doctrine, operated by a crew that had embraced something the galaxy had never seen before: civilized savagery. The hunt was about to enter a new phase. And for the first time in their long history, the Andromedans discovered what it felt like to be prey. The first hyperspace torpedo materialized inside the Andromedan formation, like a nightmare given form. Chief Rodriguez had somehow managed to weaponize humanity's understanding of space-time, creating projectiles that bypassed conventional shields by existing partially outside normal reality. The lead Andromedan cruiser simply ceased to exist, its crystalline hull unable to comprehend the physics-defying impact. The remaining 16 ships reacted with mechanical precision, but their calculated responses were designed for conventional warfare, not for combat against something that refused to follow the rules. Sarah watched the tactical display with satisfaction as the Defiance danced through the Andromedan formation like a predator among confused prey. Her crew worked with synchronized efficiency that bordered on telepathic, each member anticipating the other's needs without verbal communication. Target their command vessels first, she ordered. Cut off their coordination. Dr. Tanaka's modified sensors had identified the Andromedan's network topology within seconds of engagement. Her targeting solutions appeared on every weapon station simultaneously, each one optimized for maximum psychological impact rather than mere destruction. Commander, called Torres from communications, the Andromedans are requesting a ceasefire. They say they want to negotiate. Sarah's smile was predatory. Tell them we don't negotiate with trespassers. The battle that followed would later be studied by military academicians across the galaxy, though most would dismiss the records as impossible. A single human vessel, crewed by scientists and explorers, systematically dismantled a fleet of advanced warships using tactics that shouldn't have worked against superior technology. But the Andromedans had made a critical error in their analysis. They had assumed that human violence was chaotic, driven by emotion and primitive instinct. They failed to understand that humanity had evolved something unique: the ability to combine predatory aggression with strategic intelligence. Sergeant Santos led boarding parties onto 3 Andromedan vessels simultaneously, her marines moving through the alien ships like ghosts. The Andromedans had never faced enemies who treated their advanced defensive systems as mere puzzles to be solved, rather than barriers to be overcome. Their neural interfaces are quantum-based. Dr. Park reported from the captured flagship's bridge. But they're vulnerable to electromagnetic disruption. I'm uploading a virus that should crash their entire network. Dr. Webb found himself in the flagship's medical bay, studying Andromedan physiology with clinical detachment. These beings had evolved beyond physical violence, their society so peaceful that they had lost the instincts necessary for effective warfare. They have no adrenaline response, he observed, examining unconscious prisoners. No fight-or-flight reflex. Violence is literally incomprehensible to them, which explained why they had been so completely unprepared for humans. The engagement ended when the last surviving Andromedan ship broadcast an unconditional surrender. Sarah accepted it, but not for reasons the aliens would have understood. She needed witnesses to carry a message back to the Galactic Council. On the bridge of the captured flagship, Sarah faced the Andromedan admiral, whose crystalline features now showed hairline cracks of stress. The being's voice carried harmonics of confusion and fear. "Impossible," it whispered. "Our analysis showed your species lacks the technological advancement for this level of warfare." Sarah leaned back in the alien command chair, studying the admiral with the detached interest of a scientist examining a specimen. "You made the same mistake everyone makes. You assume technology determines victory. Then what does?" "Will," Sarah replied simply. "The willingness to do whatever is necessary to protect what's yours." The admiral's crystalline form seemed to dim. "You speak of protection, but our records show you seeking out combat. You hunt raiders across multiple sectors far from any territory you claim." Sarah considered this. It was true that the Defiance had been ranging farther and farther from human space, following raider fleets into regions where humanity had no official interests. But the distinction between protection and predation seemed increasingly irrelevant. "The raiders threaten peaceful species," she said finally. "That makes them our problem." Or perhaps, the admiral suggested quietly, "you have simply found something you excel at." Before Sarah could respond, Dr. Webb appeared on the bridge carrying a datapad with urgent information. His expression was troubled but excited. "Sarah, you need to see this. The Andromedans have detailed files on human psychology, dating back to our first contact with galactic civilization. According to their analysis, we're not just an anomaly, we're a statistical impossibility." Sarah gestured for him to continue. "Most species follow predictable evolutionary patterns. As they develop technology and civilization, they suppress their violent instincts. Warfare becomes ritualized, formalized, limited. But humans seem to have developed the opposite trait. We've learned to enhance our violent capabilities while maintaining strategic thinking." The Andromedan admiral watched this exchange with growing alarm. "Your species represents a threat to everything we have built. Galactic civilization is based on the principle that intelligence naturally leads to peace." "Maybe that principle is wrong," Sarah replied. "If it is, then everything we believe about the nature of consciousness and morality is false." The admiral's voice carried harmonics of genuine despair. "Your existence suggests that intelligence and brutality are not only compatible but mutually reinforcing." Dr. Webb looked up from his datapad. "There's more. The Andromedans have been monitoring other human ships. Earth's hunting fleets have eliminated raider activity in 17 systems over the past month. But they're not stopping with raiders." Sarah felt a chill of anticipation rather than concern. "What do you mean?" 3 human fleets have engaged what they classified as potential threats, alien military vessels that were simply passing through human-claimed territory. The encounters resulted in complete elimination of the alien forces. The Andromedan admiral's form flickered with distress patterns. "Your species is expanding, not through diplomacy or trade, but through systematic elimination of anything you perceive as competition." Sarah studied the tactical reports that Webb was displaying. Human ships were indeed ranging far beyond Earth's official territory, establishing what could only be called hunting grounds in regions where other species had once operated freely. "We're protecting our interests," she said, but even to her own ears the words sounded hollow. "You're creating an empire," the admiral corrected. "An empire based not on conquest or colonization, but on the simple principle that you will kill anything that challenges you. The truth of those words should have horrified Sarah. Instead, she felt a deep satisfaction that she was beginning to recognize as her species' true nature. Humans weren't explorers or diplomats or peacekeepers. They were apex predators that had learned to use technology, and now that they had found their place in the galactic ecosystem, they were never going back to being prey. "Admiral," Sarah said quietly, "when you return to the Council, give them a message. The age of raiding is over. Any ship that threatens peaceful species will be hunted down and destroyed. Any fleet that challenges human vessels will be eliminated. Any species that harbors raiders will face consequences." The Admiral's crystalline features showed patterns of terror. "You're declaring war on half the galaxy." Sarah's smile was gentle and absolutely terrifying. "We're declaring peace. Our kind of peace." As the surviving Andromedan ships prepared to depart, carrying their message back to the Council, Sarah received another encrypted transmission from Earth. The contents confirmed what she had begun to suspect. Humanity was no longer content to wait for threats to emerge. They were actively hunting them down, system by system, fleet by fleet, species by species. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when apex predators decided to clean house. 6 months after the Andromedan encounter, the galactic political landscape had changed beyond recognition. The Defiance now served as flagship of what historians would later call the Human Pacification Fleet, though the humans themselves simply called it pest control. Sarah stood on the observation deck of the massive orbital station humanity had constructed in what was once neutral space. Through the reinforced viewport, she could see dozens of human warships patrolling the trade routes that now operated under Earth's protection. The sight filled her with deep satisfaction. "Commander," Dr. Webb approached her with the latest reports, though his title had changed to Director of Xenobiological Analysis. "The quarterly statistics are in." Sarah accepted the tablet and reviewed the data with professional interest. Raider attacks across the sector had dropped to 0. Piracy was extinct. Trade flowed freely between peaceful species, protected by human patrol fleets that maintained order through the simple expedient of destroying anything that threatened it. "Complaints from the Galactic Council?" she asked. "Down to 3 formal protests this month," Webb replied. "Mostly about our aggressive interpretation of self-defense laws." Sarah smiled. The Council had learned to be careful about their criticisms. 2 months ago, they had attempted to impose economic sanctions on human space. The sanctions lasted exactly 47 minutes, the time it took for human fleets to appear in orbit around every Council member's home system. The message had been clear. Humanity would tolerate oversight from no one. "Any new threats emerging?" Webb hesitated. "There are rumors about something called the Coalition of Free Systems. Apparently, several species are discussing joint military action against what they call human expansionism." Sarah's expression didn't change, but Webb noticed her pupils dilate slightly, a response he had learned to associate with her predatory instincts activating. "How many species?" "Intelligence suggests 17, possibly 23. They're being very careful about their communications." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. The coalition represented the largest potential threat humanity had faced since establishing its dominance. But threats had become opportunities for humans to demonstrate their effectiveness. "Schedule a fleet review," she ordered. "I want to remind our neighbors why peace is preferable to the alternative." As Webb departed to coordinate the demonstration, Sarah remained on the observation deck, watching the patrol ships maintain their endless vigil. Each vessel was crewed by humans who had embraced their species' true nature, predators who had learned to think strategically about violence. Dr. Park approached, now serving as Director of Strategic Intelligence. Her transformation from botanist to military analyst still amazed those who remembered her previous work with alien plant species. But Sarah had come to understand that humans adapted to any environment they found themselves in, including environments that required systematic violence. "Commander, we've intercepted coalition communications," Park reported. "They're calling for a return to galactic civilization and the containment of human aggression." "Civilization," Sarah repeated thoughtfully. They still don't understand. The irony wasn't lost on her. Humanity had brought true peace to this region of space. No more raider attacks, no more planetary bombardments, no more civilian massacres. Trade flourished, Scientific cooperation had increased, and weaker species could pursue their cultural development without fear. But this peace came at a price that made other species uncomfortable. The absolute certainty that anything threatening it would be utterly destroyed. The coalition is planning a coordinated strike, Park continued. They believe that if they can eliminate human fleets in multiple systems simultaneously, they can restore the old balance of power. Sarah felt that familiar stirring in her chest, the hunting instinct awakening. The coalition had made the same mistake as everyone else. They assumed humans would fight defensively, react to threats rather than eliminate them. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Dr. Tanaka, Sarah called to the physicist, who was monitoring sensor arrays from a nearby workstation. How many coalition ships can we track simultaneously? All of them, Tanaka replied with satisfaction. Our sensor network now covers 47 star systems. Every coalition vessel is tagged and monitored in real time, Sarah smiled. Humans had learned to think like a pack. Individual ships coordinated across vast distances, sharing information instantaneously, moving with collective purpose that no alliance of independent species could match. Begin Operation Apex Predator, she ordered. What followed would later be called the Hour of Silence. In 17 different star systems, human fleets appeared without warning around coalition naval bases, staging areas, and command centers. The attacks were not random. They had been planned for months, with every target selected for maximum strategic impact. The coalition had expected humanity to wait for their coordinated strike. Instead, they found themselves simultaneously under attack across their entire territory. Admiral Harrison of the Earth Fleet Titan reported from the Arcturus system. Coalition Command Center eliminated. No survivors. Proceeding to secondary targets. Captain Rodriguez of the Mars Destroyer Pack checked in from the Deneb system. Supply depot destroyed. Enemy reinforcements intercepted and neutralized. Sector clear. One by one, the reports came in. Coalition fleets that had taken decades to build were eliminated in minutes by human forces that fought with coordinated precision. The aliens had prepared for war, but humans had brought extermination. Within 6 hours, the coalition of free systems ceased to exist as a military force. More importantly, every species in the galaxy received a clear demonstration of what happened to those who threatened human-maintained peace. Sarah watched the final battle reports with the satisfaction of a job well done. Sergeant Santos, now promoted to Colonel and Director of Tactical Operations, approached with casualty figures. Human losses? Sarah asked. 7 wounded, none killed, Santos replied. Enemy casualties, and she paused. Total, Sarah nodded. It had been necessary to send a message that would be understood across the galaxy. Humanity would tolerate no challenges to its authority. Peace would be maintained through the simple expedient of eliminating anything that threatened it. Dr. Webb appeared with a communication from the Galactic Council. The alien's desperate message played on the main display, showing Council Speaker Vorak with features that displayed obvious terror. To the human authority, the message began, the Galactic Council formally requests immediate ceasefire and negotiation regarding the status of the coalition systems. Sarah considered this for a moment. The Council still didn't understand their situation. Open a channel, she ordered. Speaker Vorak's image appeared on the screen, his ethereal features showing stress patterns that indicated near panic. Commander Chen, he began, the Council wishes to discuss the recent incidents. Perhaps we can reach an accommodation that respects the territorial interests of all species. Sarah leaned forward in her chair, and even through the holographic connection, the alien dignitary seemed to sense her predatory focus. Speaker Vorak, she said quietly, there seems to be a misunderstanding. You speak of territorial interests and accommodation as if we were equals negotiating boundaries. She paused, letting the words sink in. We are not equals. Humanity has demonstrated that we are the apex predators in this region of space. The only accommodation needed is your species' acceptance of this reality. Vorak's form flickered with distress. But Commander, galactic civilization is based on cooperation between sovereign species. Sarah's smile was gentle and absolutely terrifying. Galactic civilization is based on whatever keeps the peace. And what keeps the peace is the certain knowledge that humanity will destroy anything that threatens it. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in contemplative silence. Outside the viewport, human patrol ships continued their endless vigil, protecting the trade routes and peaceful species that had learned to accept humanity's protection. Dr. Webb approached Sarah with one final report. "The transformation is complete," he said quietly. "Humanity has become the galactic authority whether anyone recognizes it or not." Sarah nodded, watching a merchant convoy pass safely through space that had once been terrorized by raiders. The ships flew under Earth's protection now, their crews knowing that any threat to them would result in swift and total retaliation. "Doctor," she said finally, "do you remember when you said humans were evolutionary anomalies?" "Yes," Webb replied carefully. "You were wrong. We're not anomalies. We're exactly what the galaxy needed. A species willing and able to impose peace through superior firepower." Sarah's reflection in the viewport showed a being that had fully embraced humanity's true nature. The galaxy now belonged to apex predators who had learned to think strategically, and every alien species that looked into space and saw human patrol ships keeping the peace would remember the simple truth. When humans widened their eyes at the scent of blood, civilizations trembled in fear. The hunt was over. Humanity had won.